It is that time. We get up early for you because we're just those kind of guys. The Mac guys on Birds 365. Johnny Mac, we are 28 days away from camp. And this would be show number what? Guess off the top of your head for Birds 365?
We're nearing 60. I don't think what are we, 57, 58, 59?
59, very good. Right. Show 59 here on Birds 365. Heading toward 100, those first 100 days in Birds 365 office are key. Yes. We're getting there. We're zooming right along to get there, even though it seems like camp is like a year and a half.
What did you want to accomplish, Jody, in the first 100 shows of the Birds 365 administration?
To not get fired was the number one goal, as far as I was concerned, and we may still accomplish that.
We may. We'll day to day. What do I always tell you?
There you go.
Control what you can control, Jody.
You're not going to get coach speak like that anywhere else than here on Birds 365. That we are day to day. John McMullen, Jody McDonald, hanging with you. We got a couple of good guests who will hop aboard during the next 2 hours. We'll give you details on that coming up in just a second. I want to reference a friend of the show. We've had him on before. We'll probably try and get him on next week or the week after, certainly sometime over the next couple of weeks. Adam Kaplan of the Inside the Birds podcast did mention in his latest podcast that he's gotten at least what he believes to be decent info and sources about the Eagles and the conversations they're having with Steven Nelson, the much talked about cornerback, last with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who is still out there on the open market, who is arguably the best cornerback who is still available on the free agent market right now. And we've heard little about the Eagles' interest in Steven Nelson, other than guys like Jody McDonald, John McMullen, just speculating on Birds 365 that it seems like a natural fit and the Eagles should be in conversations with him. Adam Kaplan did throw out some parameters of what he believes the conversations have been like. And what Adam said was he's hearing that the Birds are trying to get the deal done somewhere in the $2 to $3 million range. 1 year contract. At this stage of free agency, that's usually what you're talking about. Guys aren't getting multi-year deals when you're already sneaking up on July and you are down to less than a month before camp opens up. Chances are Nelson's going to have to take a 1 year deal. That's the best offer he's going to get. And that the Eagles are sitting somewhere in that $2 to $3 million range, whereas Nelson is still of the belief that he deserves more and is asking for somewhere between $4 and $5 million. At first blush, it doesn't seem like that big a difference, John. But when teams are getting down to the nitty and the gritty, the Eagles have about $4 million underneath their cap right now as far as space goes, which, by the way, an aside, I don't think I brought this up in a week.
Yeah, Did I miss
the Landon Dickerson signing?
Nope, you haven't.
Have they announced that yet? Is that a foregone?
It is a foregone conclusion, but no, they have not announced it, and they have not announced it because of what I've been telling you. It's offset money, and it'll get done before training camp. But you're right. The bigger part of Landon Dickerson is the cap hit. So you mentioned, let's see, I'm pulling it up. The Eagles have right now $4.72 million essentially of salary cap space. Landon's hit is going to be over $1 million of that. So you have to understand right off the bat, that's going to take a chunk out. And then you're talking about Steven Nelson. Now, Howie's trick is these voidable years where Steven Nelson will sign a 5-year deal on paper, right, which is 4 voidable years on top of a nothing year. So you can spread out the signing bonus, whatever guaranteed money gets over 5 years, and it won't be much of a hit. So they'll be able to do it if they can convince Steven Nelson to come in. A couple things about Steven Nelson. One, because the Eagles are so up against it, we've been talking about Steven Nelson for so long. There's this anticipation. Oh, let's get Steven Nelson. So if he comes in, this is not a big time player. This is the best of what's left. And oh, by the way, what's today's date, Jody? June 29th.
It would be the 29th, yes.
He's still out there for a reason. If he was really good, he wouldn't be out there. And certainly if he was really good, we wouldn't be talking about 2 million and 4 million in Parson numbers. So you have this weird kind of loggerheads where Steven Nelson's agent claims 17 teams are interested. Well, yeah, come on.
Oh, do you not believe him? Oh, I believe him. There are 17 teams interested, but they're interested in the same kind of numbers that the Eagles are, about 2 million per, and the agent's holding out for 4 or 5. That's why he's still not signed.
Yeah, so it's sort of how you frame it. Yeah, a bunch of people would let him come in and say, okay, this is a veteran guy. He can probably help us. You need 5 corners in the NFL in today's day. So you're right. I mean, there's probably a lot of teams that would bring him in. But the second part, and I've said this pretty consistently, is the Eagles can offer him a starting job. So they can offer him the ability to play. And then if he plays well, he could get a big contract next year, whether it's here or somewhere else. So to me, this has always been the perfect fit for him. Even if he gets 4 million from somebody else, and he's not, Jody, at this stage, everybody's budget, nobody's paying Steven Nelson that to be a 4th corner or even a 3rd corner. They're just not going to do it at this stage of the game. So, yeah, from Steven Nelson's standpoint, you got to say, all right, you know what? The opportunity here is bigger than maybe a couple extra bucks there. That's how I would look at it. Other players look at it, oh, you're going to offer me 15 cents more? I'm going to go there. It always depends on the individual.
And it depends on the guy who's making the deal. Part of what every general manager has to do is negotiate and try and hold the line. And in a capped world heading into a season, give yourself as much wiggle room. You just threw the number out. It's like 4 and change, but you got to factor in $1 million plus for Dickerson, which is going to take it down to 3 and change. Oh, Howie doesn't want to give it away in one fell swoop. You want to save it as best you can because you never know what's going to happen. You could have a tremendous run of injuries leading into the season, and before you know it, you're elevating guys who you're targeting for your practice squad going into camp. You don't really think they've got a chance to make your team, but they could be practice squad players. Damn, they're going to be on our active 53 because we've got 2 cornerbacks who went down, 2 offensive linemen who went down, 2 linebackers who went down with injury. So you always want to leave yourself a little wiggle room, and that's what I think Howie is doing right now, trying to negotiate as best he can to leave himself that wiggle room. But part of it is a salesmanship job that you have to sell. You did a good job just then explaining why it would be advantageous for Nelson to be here. He's going to start. How many teams in the National Football League could we look at their roster right now, look at their depth chart, and say, oh, well, if they get Steven Nelson, and he's certainly stepping in and starting over the guys that they have right now, what do you got, a handful? Maybe 7 or 8 at the most? So if playing is the most important thing, you sell that. If coaching is the most important thing, I guess you get Nick Sirianni on the phone if he needs to step in and say, listen, I'll tank rock, paper, and scissors for you. If that's what you need a little confidence boost. You should see me. I can lose to anybody on the team when it comes to competitive games that we play.
Yes.
You do what you have to get the guy interested. And I'm not sure that the Eagles have done that. Like I said, Adam Kaplan put out numbers there. And believe me, when I tell you, you know this plenty well, John, that it's about 80% of the battle is what are the dollars and cents. And then it's the periphery items and the other things that you can sell. The money's got to be damn close to acceptable for the player before they're ever going to do anything.
Yeah. And, you know, you bring up the fact that Steven's talking about, you know, money versus playing time and coaching. You know, you bring up Nick Sirianni, Jody. I think it's more about Jonathan Gannon. And by the way, that's also a positive because Jonathan Gannon's history is with the cornerback position. That's where he grew up. So you have a defensive coordinator who not only grew up as a coach in this league teaching cornerbacks. Oh, by the way, he also rescued the career of Xavier Rhodes. You can throw that out at him.
Yeah.
Who was once an all-pro corner and just went in the tank and all of a sudden, not great, but he was okay in Indianapolis last year. And he's done it numerous times, and you could point to that. So as far as a sell job, this is pretty easy for the Eagles, in my opinion. By far, though, the biggest is we can offer playing time. And if you go anywhere else, you might win playing time. You might compete, as Nick Sirianni likes to say, and you might win a job somewhere and everything might be copacetic, but you're going to have to go win that job. He comes into Philadelphia, and we talk about it, and this is the hypocrisy of competition. He's a starting outside corner. Now, they might not name him, sort of like Jalen Hurts hasn't been named the starting cornerback. They might say, oh, we want to look at Mike Jaquette, and we want to look at Avonte Maddox outside, and even Josiah Scott outside. No, he's your starting corner. And you can say that behind the scenes and say, Steven, look at this path, man. There's no grass, there's no weeds, there's no nothing. This is straight, man. All you got to do is reach the finish line. You're the starting corner for the Philadelphia Eagles. And as I said, who knows? If Jonathan Gannon does his handiwork, if he turns him into an overachieving cornerback, this is a corner. But we talk about this being a quarterback desperate league, Jody. Well, it's also a cornerback desperate league. And if he plays well over 17 games, got to catch myself, not 16, he can make himself some money next year.
And we'll see if that happens this week or next week or the week after as we get closer to camp. We've been waiting for it to be the week that the Eagles upgrade the cornerback position. Hasn't happened yet. But then again, Steven Nelson hasn't signed anywhere else yet. So we're not coming down that harshly on Howie Roseman. Something you and I discussed for just a couple of minutes we had before the show started. Carson Wentz, the mentoring man. Yeah. I never knew. Who knew that Carson Wentz was the mentoring guy? Now, I will cut Carson this much slack because he comes into the league and he's thrown into the deep end of the pool. Didn't look like that was going to be the case. He was going to be one of the rookies that was going to have to sit and watch and learn and play when the Eagles decided it was time to move on from their veteran quarterback. No, lo and behold, the week before camp gets underway, they trade Sling and Sammy to the Minnesota Vikings, and Carson Wentz is thrown right into the starting lineup. So he never really got that mentoring thing. But also, he's never been asked to do that mentoring thing either, probably until this year, which now most people who cover the media speculate it wasn't something that Carson Wentz liked or enjoyed. He wasn't happy about the fact that the Eagles used a second-round pick on Carson Wentz this year. So he never really got it, and he never really did it. But somehow now we're made to believe that Carson Wentz is Mr. Mentor. He decided to specifically give some advice to Trey Lance on his upcoming season. These North Dakota guys. I guess Carson has moved his charity softball game from down at Lincoln Financial Field out to North Dakota. I'm guessing he's not getting as big a crowd in Fargo as he did here in Philadelphia.
No, I think real quick, Jody, he's always had two. So he had one in Philadelphia, he had one in North Dakota. I still think he has two. So I think he's doing one in Indy, and he's doing
Indy?
one. He's doing one in North. He's always had two softball. He's always done one in North Dakota, and he always did one at Lincoln Financial Field. So he always did two.
Okay.
And then you have all the old North Dakota State guys going back for that game. So Easton Stick is out there as well. And, I think it is more of a North Dakota State thing. You mentioned he didn't have mentoring. Now, he did. It was Chase Daniel. Sam Bradford, it's always interesting with these situations, was not happy when the Eagles drafted Carson Wentz. If you remember, he didn't show up for voluntary work for about a week or 10 days, and that's rare for a starting quarterback. I mean, voluntary work, we've talked about this all the time. It's voluntary for certain people. It's not voluntary for young players. It's not voluntary for the starting quarterback. You got to be there. So it was kind of a big deal at the time. People realized that Sam Bradford wasn't happy, and understandably so. He knew the writing on the wall. I mean, number 2 overall pick, you're done. It's just a matter of when. And ultimately, it got sped up after the Bridgewater injury. What goes around comes around. You see it in Green Bay. I mean, Brett Favre was upset with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers upset with Jordan Love. You have all this drama, whatever you want to call it. So Carson's not that rare. And the fact that he didn't like the Eagles drafting Jalen Hurts, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I have a problem with the way you handled it after. You can be upset. You can even go to Howie Roseman's office and say, "Take down my fat head, Howie. You drafted, put up a Jalen Hurts. Go be angry. Go scream. Go yell some paint off some walls, but then go out and do what Aaron Rodgers did." Now, you're not Aaron Rodgers, not going to be the MVP, whatever. Okay, but my point, you get my point. You can handle it a little better from that kind of standpoint. As far as mentoring, that it's like anything to a lesser degree. The Alabama guys stick together, the Miami guys stick together, the North Dakota State guys, and all of a sudden they have this quarterback tree almost, and they're going to stick together. But I do think it's funny that he said, kind of dim the outside noise, whatever the quote was. I mean, come on, Carson. You did not do that.
Right. Black out the noise. Go to work and black out the noise was the supposed quote that used in talking to Trey Lance. Hello? How about looking in the mirror here, big guy? He did not handle it well this year. Yeah, you actually cut him more slack than I do for the fact that he's got a right to be annoyed because he goes, it's a second-round pick. It's not a first-round pick. It's a mid to late.
Yeah, but still, Jody, I will still say it's hard to find a historical comparison of somebody taking a quarterback that high. I get you. It's not a first-round pick. At that age, and you just paid Carson Wentz. I can't find another example of it in the Super Bowl era, and I've looked. I can't find it. 27-year-old quarterback who you just paid the Brinks truck to, you just backed it up, and all of a sudden you take another quarterback in the second round that high. 38-year-old quarterback. Yeah, it's happened. There's plenty of examples of it. Guy in the prime of his career that you just paid all that money. There's no examples of it, Jody. So it is rare.
And rare, but deal with it. Come on. I don't know about you, Johnny Mac, but me, if somebody is going to pay me exorbitant fees to do a job, and yes, I will use the word exorbitant to describe Carson Wentz's contract. I get it. Every time there's a new guy every year that steps in, and he's going to be the new highest paid guy, and you're going to reset the whole salary structure in the league by the top level quarterbacks and the like. But he was certainly of that ilk, and he got that kind of money. I'm not going to sweat a second round draft pick being picked behind me.
And look, I agree with you. That's what I'm criticizing for. At some point, get angry. Like they didn't communicate with you before the pick. Get angry. And then move on and turn the corner and say what you just said. It's a stinking second-round pick. They just gave me the most guaranteed money in the history of the NFL. I agree with you, and I agree handled it wrong. But I also, where we disagree and where we go off different paths, I think the Eagles made a mistake. Yeah. If the goal, remember, Jody, remember what the goal was. Remember, the goal was Carson Wentz is going to be here. So with revisionist history, you can say, oh, this worked out well because Carson went in the tank. But why did Carson go in the tank? And Carson going in the tank was not the plan. That's my point. So that's where I criticize the Eagles.
Right. And I know I'm on an island pretty much by myself here. Maybe this is one thing we'll run by our first guest. I was perfectly fine using the pick for a backup quarterback in the second round because the Eagles didn't really have a backup quarterback going into last offseason. I know it's not the usual way that the NFL works, but yeah, every once in a while, Howie Roseman believes that the Eagles can do things a little differently, and maybe he'll be a trendsetter, that we've got a young starting quarterback, and Carson Wentz, relatively young. We can have an even younger backup. Age is irrelevant. We just know we need two quarterbacks, and if I can get a young quarterback, because if there's one thing that I marvel at the NFL almost on a year-in, year-out basis, is the fact that they pay damn good money to backup quarterbacks, and you then hope that the guy never sees the field. Please sit all season long. I'll pay you. Oh, I'll pay you, overpay you. I'm going to have 22 guys, at least 6 starters that I'm going to pay less than you to never play, stand on the sidelines, wear a hat, and carry a clipboard, but the backup quarterback's an important position. Why not get him cheaper? And a guy on a rookie deal who's a second-round draft pick is cheaper. And damn if they didn't have to put Jalen Ertz in. Now, yes, none of us foresaw the collapse of Carson Wentz's career, but he did actually get in and play. I bought Howie Roseman. That's what I said the night that they made the pick. Shock is certainly your first reaction. They're taking a quarterback in the second round? But when you took a couple of minutes to think about it, like, all right, well, as a backup, he could actually be cost effective and he might be good. And what happens if Carson Wentz breaks his leg and he's out for 2 years? Now you've got your next guy in place.
Some inside baseball, Jody. On draft night, on that night, I was given an indication that the Eagles were going to draft Jalen Hurts, and I hesitated to put it on Twitter because I was like, this can't be right.
How long before the pick?
I had the pick up there before they made the pick. I just threw it up there. I said, whatever. But and it was right. So it worked out.
We're talking matters of minutes here.
Yeah, we're talking like a minute, 90 seconds before the pick. And I said to myself, this can't be right. This can't be right. And it was right.
Well, and I didn't come down.
I hesitated. So it should have been up. My point is it should have been up about 2.5 minutes before.
Well, that's okay. And I was one of very few who didn't have a problem with Howie Roseman actually making that pick. All right. Let's get our first guests up. Joining us today is going to be Chris Franklin from NJ.com, Eagles beat writer. We're up aboard with the Mac and Mac guys there on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
but as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong, Try it on at GoArmy.com.
He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are Birds 365, and we're lucky enough to get our next guest to be able to talk Eagles and NFL with us for the next 20 minutes. You catch him on NJ.com. Mr. Chris Franklin jumps aboard with us here on Bird. Chris, Jody Mack, and Johnny Mack here with you. How are you, bud?
Hey, doing great, guys. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Good to see you, Chris. First off, I want to see how are you bouncing back from your foray covering the Sixers. That was tough. That was a tough ending there.
That was one of the weirdest, strangest, most fun things to view over that playoff run. There's just so much that just happened, and they really should be still playing right now. That's a whole nother story on that.
Yeah. Well, then that gives me a good follow-up question. Knowing full well that the Sixers were supposed to go further than they did and came up short and losing to the Hawks, knowing the Eagles were supposed to be competitive last year and they weren't at 4-11-1, which is actually more disappointing and disheartening to a fan base, making the playoffs, having a good regular season, then getting picked off in the playoffs, or supposed to have a decent regular season and you stink. What do you think is feeling more pain this year, Eagles fans or Sixer fans?
Oh, Sixers fans for sure. Okay. But when you're looking at the way that everything was lined up, you had the Bucks who I thought they matched up better at. You had all these other things. The Nets were out. You had so many things lined up, and to get bounced by a team that Trae Young, don't get me wrong, Trae Young's a really, really good guard. Yeah. When you look at the supporting cast they had, this team should have been playing. They should have probably made the NBA Finals. I think they would have had a chance to actually win the whole thing.
Plus, I got to add, Chris, you got one in the pocket if you're the Eagles. We got to go back to 2018 in February, whereas you got to go back to 1983 for the Sixers. So I think that adds into it as well. The Eagles kind of have one in their pocket. But for Philadelphia, obviously, now they're in the transition period. That's what Jeffrey Lurie has called it. Now, I get the sense, Chris, and they do this every year, and I've asked a lot of guys this. Do you think they've shifted a little bit from this mentality? Okay, we got to rebuild. We got to turn this thing over. And now as we get closer to training camp, they start to say, well, we can compete in this division. Let's go get some veteran players. If we can get Steven Nelson, you think that helps or hurts?
I think it hurts. I think for me, I think it hurts because they're stuck in the middle right now. If you're going to build something right, you don't just want to just rush it together, piece it up, and then have all these holes left in. If you're going to do a complete teardown, do a complete teardown and build it up the right way. And I think it's going to be one. I think it's going to look like one of those years where you see there's so much potential, or they'll be close, and you'll look back at the personnel and go, hey, they had Kerrigan, they still have Graham, they have all these pieces, but yet it's just not good enough. And they still have all these assets next year with the first round picks. They have everything there to continue to build. But I think the best thing to do is get a lot of these young guys some experience, have them go through an entire season, go through the lumps, learn how to win themselves, and then keep adding on. And then if it doesn't work out, then, hey, you know that you have to build in other places and then start over from scratch again. So they're caught in the middle for sure, it seems like.
Ryan Kerrigan is one of those players that John was kind of relating to. You get a veteran guy. He can probably make some plays for you, but are you hurting anyone else with their time on the field that you need to make a decision on that may be more a player you would lean on going down the line in future years? Which brings us to Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat. Both are free agents at the end of this year. I don't see both of them coming back. The one who plays better, the one that the Eagles feel better about, is probably the guy they're going to pursue and try and sign to a contract extension, maybe even in season this year before they get to free agency. Which of those two do you have more confidence in that, yeah, this guy could actually – we've been waiting for the Barnett breakout year for about 3 straight years now. Is it going to be Barnett, or do you think Josh Sweat flashes enough that they say, damn, we got to get this guy signed going forward?
I personally think it's going to be Sweat because at least when, as you mentioned before, at least you've seen development out of Sweat. Barnett, and another thing too is Barnett's injury history. I mean, both guys get nicked up, but Barnett seems to be, you just seem to have a little bit more frustration when you see Barnett. You see a guy who how many times have you heard that he has this bend and he broke the record? He has all these tools. He has the speed.
Reggie's records, yeah.
Yeah, you keep hearing that, and then you're waiting for the guy to put it all together. And I look at Sweat and I see a guy who's should have been what Barnett should have been. And I think looking long term, I think you could probably be a more cost effective getting a guy like Sweat would be cheaper than a guy like Barnett in the long haul. I mean, and I still think you get more production, the same, if not more production out of Sweat than you do with Barnett. I will say this, if Barnett is able to stay on the field for like 13, 14 games, which is going to be tough we haven't really seen him do that, but if he stays on the field for 13, 14 games, I think he can have a season where he gets like 7 sacks. And is it enough to get a big contract? I wouldn't feel comfortable still doing that, but I think he may have a bounce back season in my opinion, but still
Chris,
better.
To further go down that path, okay, maybe it doesn't seem like a big deal, but coaches in this league. So we're trying to evaluate Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat because you're probably not going to be able to sign both. And as I said, you know how coaches are. They're going to try to win games on game day, and they're going to say, we got Ryan Kerrigan. Let's put Ryan Kerrigan out there. And the more snaps he takes away from those guys, the less evaluation. So I get back to my original point. What the heck are we trying to do here? Are we trying to evaluate who's going to be here? Because I like Ryan Kerrigan. They didn't spend a lot of money on him. I think he can help this team, but I think he can help this team in 2021. He's gone in 2022. So what's the point?
When the initial herd signing, I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I mean, he gives you that veteran leadership. He can show the guys how to do it. But when it comes long term, it's just taken away. I'm really excited to see what Teron Jackson does. Yeah. I think he can be a disruptor. But when you have a guy like that, I think it, like I said, it takes away from the snaps he has. And then even if you do want to have a package where you have Kerrigan on the outside, you move Graham inside, and they got Barnett. I mean, what does that do for the other guys as well? Like, you see what they can do as a win now, but I think in the long term it hinders a lot of the playing time for those young guys. And I think Jackson needs a lot of snaps to get you acclimated to it, especially if you're not going to sign Barnett or Sweat. I think you need to get those guys prepared as early as possible.
Well, before you came on, before we just punched you up, we were talking about Jalen Hurts going back to draft night last year. I didn't have a problem with it. I was one of very few who said, well, I get what they're doing. They're drafting their backup quarterback here. And, oh, by the way, Carson Wentz almost always gets hurt. And if they have to put a guy in and it's not just some grizzled 38-year-old veteran who's going to hold down the fort for 2 games, if he's got to play for 2 months, so be it. I didn't know it was going to turn into Jalen Hurts starting quarterback year number 2. So it's been kind of a weird journey in the first year plus of Jalen Hurts' career. All we hear about this kid is he's got great character, he's got great mental makeup, and he's a take charge kind of guy, and players gravitate to him. Is he ready to be the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles this year in your mind?
I think he is. I definitely think he's more than a top 40 quarterback. That's a whole nother situation when it comes to it. But I look at some of the things that he's been able to do, like when he played on the field. I mean, everybody knows about his athletic ability. Everybody knows about he's a run. He went a long way in his development from when he first came into camp into when he played he's inserted against the Packers, he played against Saints, and so forth and so on. I think his intermediate game and his short passing game, I think there's a lot to be said there. He has to improve on the long ball, but I wrote about this morning. I think that it actually improves too because the Eagles will focus more on the run, so it opens up a lot more windows, a lot more things open for them. But I think when you look at, I mean, don't get me wrong, he can't throw 52%. Have a 52% completion rate percentage again, but I think just like any other rookie, I think he was still trying to get used to everything else. So I think you'll see considerable improvement, and I think that he's going to open up this offense not only in the run game but also the passing game, and I think he'll have success.
All right, Chris, I'm gonna give Jody a present here by giving you a hypothetical question, because Jody loves the hypothetical.
Love the hypothetical.
So I'm gonna go this route. Jalen Hurts, not a lot is expected from this team nationally. We've seen the numbers over 6.5. Nobody thinks this team's going to be any good. So Jalen Hurts plays well, and the Eagles are better than people expect. But they win 8 games. They're obviously not ready to be a championship contender. And all of a sudden, down in Houston, down in South Texas, legal allegations are cleared up. You mentioned the Eagles have all the draft capital. They'll have all the money they need. Deshaun Watson's free and clear. He's not playing for the Houston Texans. Somebody's going to go get him. Are the Eagles getting Deshaun Watson even after Jalen Hurts plays well?
Personally, I wouldn't, because I think you still have him on a rookie deal, and then you just get him the pieces that he needs to further develop him. But I think the way Howie Roseman thinks and the way that this team has done in the past, I think they'll throw everything in the kitchen sink in order to try to get him. But in a situation like that, it's hard to find young talent, especially homegrown talent. And being that we've seen this team in the past when it comes to their cap situation, and how much success you have before you sign that quarterback to a big contract, you have so many more assets. I think you open yourself, instead of having, you're setting yourself up, you're setting your cap run for to be blocked up for the next 3-4 years. You give yourself 2 years to really bring in some top tier talent to put around him, not only on offense, but also help that defense as well too, because there's still issues on the other side of things. Yeah. So Watson would be Watson's a very dynamic quarterback, and he adds a lot. You got the Pro Bowls, but if you have a young quarterback yourself, still on a rookie deal, you can do so much. And in that situation, if I'm sitting in a GM, which I think for a lot of people that's probably a good thing, I'm not sitting in a GM spot, I probably would stay away from that and stick with Hurts.
Now I'll answer the hypothetical too. I know you asked it, Chris, but I'll give you an answer. I'll play Howie Roseman. The reason why we're staying with Jalen Hurts, so I can get John McMullen to stop asking the question about we half-heartedly talk about rebuild and then go the veteran route and try and win anyway. No, this is an actual rebuild, and we're going to stick with the young guys. So, Jalen, guess what? I'm just spitballing here as to what Howie may actually say. All right, let me turn it over to the defensive side of the ball. We don't know what Jonathan Gannon is yet. He's talked a pretty good game. You guys had access to him. I like the answers that he gave. You got a chance to see some of the stuff that they did on the field, only that was limited during the non-mandatory workouts that the Eagles were in. But we also know about his hits philosophy and the way he thinks defense is going to be played. Can you actually teach that, Chris? He emphasizes turnovers, that getting turnovers is a big part of winning in the National Football League. And last time I checked, there was no specific way that you can increase your turnovers. There's no analytical theorem you can put into place that's going to make you a better turnover team. How is Gannon going to be able to implement that to see it happen, not only with the talent that he has here, but just overall in the NFL, making turnovers happen? I don't know how you do that.
Pressure. Lots that's more than one word, but lots and lots of pressure when it comes to that. I mean, when you see those linebackers up near the line of scrimmage, and you see the potential blitzes that could be used, and especially if coming from the old Minnesota way of double A gap blitz, Mike Zimmer way of double A gap blitz, you're faking that, and you're quarterback, and you see 2 linebackers coming straight at you, and you start kind of going, I don't know which way it's going. And oh, wait, they drop back, and you just have a corner coming on the outside. That type of philosophy really drives havoc on a quarterback. And when you have to speed up the clock, you put the offenses in more of a situation where they can potentially throw the ball away, turn them over. So I think the pressure is going to be what helps them get toward the turnovers, but you have to have the guys in the right position. You have to have the right personnel to get you in that right thing. And I think you have Slay. When you have Slay, I think he can do well. There's still that other question mark when it comes to Avonte Maddox. If they find another cornerback and move Maddox back inside, I got no problem with that at all, because I think he does well in there. So they'll get the pressure, but it's still going to become dependent on that personnel they have.
By the way, I love that Jody brought up the hits philosophy because I like Jonathan Gannon, but come on, hustle. It's a hustle, intensity, takeaways, and I think smarts or football IQ, whatever. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, every defensive coordinator doesn't want to take the football away. The point is, you mentioned those AA gaps, Chris. Well, Mike Zimmer had Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks. And oh, by the way, when you talk about bailing out and blitzing the corner, with Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes and Mackenzie Alexander, all these first and second round picks. Who the heck is Jonathan Gannon doing that with? Alex Singleton and Eric Wilson? And maybe they signed Steven Nelson? I mean, to run that philosophy, you got to have big time players.
And I think it's also, they're going to have to rely more of a team concept as well, too, a team defensive concept, because a lot of these times when you go one-on-one, I think Singleton, I don't think he's a one-hit wonder. I think Wilson could be okay. I'm more worried about the back end, that third level of the defense. The second level, I think the defensive line is going to be able to shield a little bit more and keep those linebackers clean so they can still do the things they want to. It's once you get back towards the back end, that's where I think there's going to be a lot more worries. I think you have a lot of speed and athleticism in the linebacker. It's still not the way the linebackers you remember from like the late 80s, 90s of the Eagles, but they're still athletic enough to get from sideline to sideline. No problem with that. And if the defensive line does what they're supposed to, play their gaps, play sound defensive team ball up front, they'll be fine. It's when they get back to that back end, that secondary. Ooh, I mean, you still have McLeod. Still, you got questions about his knee, if he's going to be okay. Kayvon Wallace is still a young guy to develop. You got so many pieces. There's so many question marks back there. That's where you start to really. That's where all my questions are on that defense, is the secondary.
Let me follow up on that with both you guys. As a matter of fact, Johnny just threw out a hypothetical, so I could hop in. I need your answer, Chris, and then John as well. Our buddy Jimmy Kempski, we had him on yesterday. You guys, compatriots, on the beat. He didn't tell us he was going to do a column for today's paper about breakout stars. We just had fun with his dumpster fire series when we had him on. But he had 5 potential breakout stars for the Eagles this year. Both Jalen's, Ertz, and Rager. Mailata, Quez Watkins, Andre Dillard. His 5 potential breakout stars. What do all of these guys have in common? They play on the same side of the ball. 5 offensive players. Nary 1 defensive player to be found on his potential breakout stars. So I'll ask you guys to, maybe it's reach. Give me a defensive guy who you can at least put off the flank of these 5 guys. I'm not saying Jimmy's wrong. Actually, I think he's pretty right. I don't know if I would put a defensive guy ahead of any of those 5, but it is pretty sad that it's 5 on one side, 0 on the other. Force feed me a defensive guy that I can get excited about and call a potential breakout star.
Well, I know he's a defensive lineman and defensive tackle, but it's not like the most attractive pick. But I think Milton Williams. I really believe that he can be a guy who can be dynamic, especially on that second unit. When you have it's the strength this guy has, and everybody shows the spider charts and everything else, but his pure strength on the inside, that could potentially bully a guard or a center from there and push that pocket back into quarterbacks. And then if you have Kerrigan playing that second unit and you have Sweat playing that second unit coming off the edge, I think that really adds it. And everybody forgets Hassan Ridgeway. Hassan Ridgeway is a good defensive tackle for what he is. So Milton Williams has the potential to really be a very good defensive tackle, not only against the run, but I think his power can basically adjust him in the pass game, the pass rush as well too.
Yeah, that's a good one, Chris. I'm going to go with Vontae Maddox for 2 reasons. One, I think this coaching staff is going to be smart enough to keep him in the slot. They're going to find somebody, whether it's Mike Jaquette or Steven Nelson or somebody to play outside, Zach McPherson. So I think they're going to keep him inside. And second reason, he's in his contract year. So he's got a lot of impetus to play well, so to speak, to get that second deal, whether it's going to be here or somewhere else. So I do think Avante is going to be a little bit better than people expect. But I do want to talk about the cornerback position as a whole, Chris. I mean, are you of the mindset that whether it's Steven Nelson or somebody else, or it's a trade in August, they got to do something? They got to get an outside corner somewhere.
And if they're going to subscribe to the philosophy of a win now, Nelson has to be their guy. He has to target. I think he's more suited for that zone scheme that they have, that they plan on having. I know people are saying, Richard Sherman's out there too. I think he stays more out west on the West Coast. Yeah. I don't think he would come to Philadelphia, because otherwise you're looking at Michael Jacquet being the corner, and I think he'll personally. I don't think he's to me he's not on the level of a Steven Nelson yet. I think he could play a lot better than he did. I mean that Dallas game he had where it was a rough game, give like 170 some yards up. That was rough, and corners have bad games. I don't think that's who he is as a corner overall. I don't think he's a 2 right now, but I think he can be all right with it. But if they're going to subscribe to that win now, Nelson has to be the guy. I mean, he's the veteran, and especially in this division where you have Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, all these guys. They have to do something, because teams are probably looking at the secondary right now, just licking their chops. It's just bad.
And understandably, people are making a big deal about the other cornerback slot because it deserves to be questioned, because we don't know what they're going to have there. Kind of flying under the radar for me is the safety position, because we're all assuming that Rodney McLeod is going to come back at some point. Well, when is some point? Week 1, week 4, week 8, week 12. That's a big difference. And if he's not ready to go early in the season, then they're going to be force feeding someone in as starting safety. Maybe a Marcus Epps, who John and I have fun with, because we both kind of like.
Love him.
Epsy is a guy who, I'm a little optimistic for, probably unfounded, but they're going to be untested at the other safety position as well. If McLeod isn't ready to start the season, should we be zeroing in on that as much as we are the other cornerback position, or do we just have faith that Rodney McLeod is going to be able to get, if not back right at the beginning of the season, early enough in the year that it isn't the end to the Eagles season because they went shorthanded at safety?
I think if they win a lot of man-to-man, I'd be extremely worried. But I think with them going to cover 2, I think that gives them a little bit more of an out. You can have them playing the deep pass, or even if they go cover 3, you have somebody roaming around in the top third. I think that doesn't put as much pressure. Just say, hey, just don't let the guy get behind you. Okay. I think that I have confidence. Epps. I think Kayvon Wallace. I think I'm still high on him. I still think he can be a pretty decent safety in this league. So. I know Epps is the highest rated safety on a PFF, something like that. Yeah. But so he's all right if it comes down to it. But I know the McLeod injury that's tough to come back for, and even then you still have the year afterwards to get back to your normal self. And he's getting up there in age. But even I think this new defensive scheme that they have, I think the safeties are going to be. I don't think as much is going to be asked of them. So I think that them being back in that coverage, in that zone, that cover 2 or 3, I think is going to be okay for them.
Yeah, my bigger concern, Chris, with Rodney, as you mentioned, he's 31 now. He turned 31 a couple of days ago. He had the ACL in December, so it's a 9-month injury. He might not be back week 1, but it might be week 3 or week 4. I don't think it's going to be a huge thing. My question is, this is 2 ACLs and whatever. A couple year span, is he going to have it physically still? That's my bigger concern. He's going to be able to rehab and get on the field pretty quickly. But you brought up an interesting point with cover 2, cover 3. I think the Eagles corners aren't going to be as bad as people think, no matter who's out there, because they're playing a lot of zone and they're going to look a little bit better. And that puts more on the shoulders of the safeties. And you brought up Kayvon Wallace. he's a box safety. I don't know if he fits in here any longer. And that's why I think Marcus Epps, who plays a lot of single high or did play a lot of single high, Rodney does, Anthony Harris does. Is that what they're going to use? Just cover 2 and cover 3?
I would. And get back to Keel as well. I think you use him against the tight ends, opposing tight ends. I think he'll do well with that part. And I think you use the cover 2 and cover 3 to help everybody else. I think it's a simple. Well, NFL defenses aren't just like, hey, everybody can run it. There's a lot of nuances and stuff like that. But I think it's one of those things where it's going to be simpler than what, say, a Jim Schwartz defense was, because even Schwartz used to say for his systems, safeties and linebackers were the toughest things to learn. So I think the cornerbacks. The cornerbacks, when it comes to the cover 2, it's not as much as asked of them because you have that help on the backside. You just say, hey, keep everything in front of you, cover, curl flat, whatever, what have you. But I think when you look overall, I think the safeties will be okay. I think, but Rodney is going to be long term. I'm worried about Rodney long term, but I think he'll be all right.
Yeah, fans, real quick, Chris. Fans, I think, are in for a rude awakening if they thought Jim Schwartz was simple. Get ready to get simpler.
Let me go down the hypothetical road as well. It's July. It's second day of camp. Okay, if camp's going to open on the 27th, the 28th, let's say, which one of you two guys is going to be the first one to ask Nick Sirianni? And Zach Ertz is not here. Why, Coach? Zach Ertz is still on the run, but he's not here. Why, Coach? And how has Dallas got it? And Nick Sirianni's been pretty good. He has not gotten annoyed with any. Hasn't pulled a Doc Rivers getting annoyed with members of the media for asking questions he doesn't like. Will Nick Sirianni be already tired of you guys asking the Zach Ertz question by day 2 of camp when Howie Roseman still hasn't gotten what he wants in trade for Zach Ertz?
I think he's going to put it off really nicely. I think he's going to try. I can see it right now. He'll go, you know what? Zach's a very important guy, but you know what? Jack Stoll's out there working his butt off. I'm telling you, right? He'll do that, and he's working his butt off, and he's competing. And so I think if it lingers on, they have to do something with Ertz because it's going to want to be a distraction week 2 weeks in. And I know they're trying to get whatever they can. They're trying to get the best pick they can or player they can for a guy like Ertz, but they have to do something because if the longer this goes in, I think he would get tired about a weekend. It's going to because the question is going to keep coming up. I think about a weekend, that's where it goes, hey guys, I've asked for this enough times. Just something else from there.
All right, let's talk about the coach. Last one from me, Chris. Want to thank you for joining the program again. Read his work at njonline.com. Sixers work as well in this off season. Are you still going to be on the Sixers trade beat real quick?
If it involves Simmons, yeah. If it involves Simmons or something around that way, yeah, I'll jump in here and there, and if something pops up for there, which the way it sounds.
All right, give me the Cleveland trade, Jody. I want to hear Chris's theory on the Cleveland trade.
Okay. That was reported this week that Cleveland would consider trading Colin Sexton, who averaged almost 25 points a game. They might not want to go max money. He's on the last year of his rookie deal. Colin Sexton and Kevin Love for Ben Simmons. Now, Love is not a $30 million player anymore, but I don't think Ben Simmons is a $30 million player either. If you got Sexton but had to take Love to make the salary caps work, would you do that if you were the 76ers?
Ever since Love had that inbounds pass mishap and look, he pretty much quit on the team, I would not touch Love. Even if he is Olympic, which I still, for the life of me, I don't know how he made the Olympic team, but I still would. No.
Say yes. Say yes. Say yes.
No, I can't.
That's the best trade that you're going to get this offseason. Mark my words.
It's not about Love. Love is just matching up the salaries. It's about Sexton. It's about pick and roll with Joel. It's about somebody who can create his own offense.
I'm calling Portland and giving whatever they need. What do you want for Dame? I'll give whatever you want for Dame.
Yeah.
I do that in a heartbeat because the two. Imagine
I'm
having.
with you. Imagine
having Seth Curry. You saw what Seth Curry and Embiid did with the 2-man game. Yeah. Imagine what you had with Dame Lillard and Embiid going with that. And then you have Seth Curry on the other wing. Love to me. If it was 2012, 2013, oh yeah, I'll do that.
But I don't think you can get James. So that's where I am. But obviously, I would rather. I'd give up I'd give up Maxey, Thibault, first round picks, bring him back.
Agreed.
Because I think you can get it. You can get the when it comes to defenders, there's a lot of guys with a lot of wingspan, and a lot of defense is about will and desire. So you can find the right guy with the right makeup that has the physical traits with Thibault. I think you can find that. It's not like they can come out like a dime a dozen, but I think there's enough guys that are out there coming to college, ranking the G League, that you can develop into that. So.
Chris, great stuff. We appreciate you coming on board with us. You know, we're going to tap into you plenty even before camp opens up, and then all year long. We appreciate when you hop on Birds 365. Thanks for doing it with us today.
Jody John, is always a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Chris Franklin, NJ.com, doing some Sixers insight for us, too.
Got to get that in, Jody.
Yes.
I always go back to my 57th Moneyball reference because it's on Showtime all month. When Billy Bean's in the office of Art Howe, who's Philip Seymour Hoffman and Brad Pitt, obviously, they're talking about Pena playing defense, and Billy Bean is saying, "I don't care about defense." That's where I am. I don't care. I want the impactful player. I want the impactful offensive player because it means more. I'm sorry. I don't care about defense. That's where I am.
That's why I would take Colin Sexton. Yes, we all realize if Dame Lillard can be had, if the Sixers can do Ben Simmons plus whatever else you need to make plus happen for Dame Lillard, that would be the preference. I think that's highly unlikely, whereas I do think a trade for Colin Sexton, if you put Love in a deal, is something that could get done tomorrow if the Sixers wanted to do it. I'm not saying they have to do it tomorrow, but when push comes to shove, I'm telling you, that's the best deal that the Sixers will have out there during this offseason. All right, we will bring it back around to the Philadelphia Eagles. I got a question for Johnny Mack when we come back, having to do with, I'm a horse racing fan, right, Johnny Mack?
I do know that. I've heard rumors of that.
Oh, the rumors are 100% accurate and true. One track that I have been to only once in my life, had a great time, had a winning day. Doesn't that usually the way that it works? If you made money in that track, it's a great track. If you went there and lost, may never go back to that track. But a track that I went to that I do want to reference that has an eagle tied to it. All right, I'm taking you down a road you might not understand. I'm going to have to explain. That won't be a problem because we're coming back here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
but as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
You got your Mac and Mac guys, McMullen and McDonald here on Birds 365. Having to thank Chris Franklin from NJ.com hopping on with us. Programming note, within the next 20 minutes, we hope to be talking to a first-time starter. There's a horse racing reference for you. Jason Cole, who we haven't had on yet since we started up Birds 365. I've had Jason on my national radio show a bunch of times over the year. NFL reporter, author, and Hall of Fame voter is going to hop aboard with us coming up in less than 20 minutes. Back to that horse racing reference I made. Track that I did go to once, made money, so therefore it's one of my favorite tracks on the planet. But it's actually one that has some history to it. Arlington Park is in Illinois, not far outside of Chicago. And they are going to end racing in Arlington Park within this is the final year of racing at Arlington Park. And there is a lot of conversation about the potential to build a new NFL-ready stadium on the site of Arlington Park. And that, of course, would be the new home of the Chicago Bears. And the Bears are flirting with Arlington, and there's some back and forth political statements being made, the mayor of Chicago and the mayor of Arlington. There's no reason why the Bears can't come out here. You're not leaving Chicago. You got a lease till 2033. But I wasn't me who coined this phrase, but I've heard many people say leases are made to be broken. Some are ironclad, some have out clauses. Here's the reason why I bring this up. It does. I got a call on my national show this weekend, John, where a guy said, Jody, it seems to me like they're going to move the Bears out to Arlington. Would the NFL put a second team in Chicago? And I said, no, they're not going to do. Why would they put? If they're going to add more teams in the NFL, they're going to expand. They're going to do so into a new market, not put a second team in a market that already has a team. But he was like really put off by the fact that the Bears were going to move from within the city limits to the suburbs. Now, Arlington is about 24, 25 miles outside of Chicago. So it's not right on the border, but it's not all that far away either. I've never quite understood this, and maybe it's me, and yes, I've dealt with it in my lifetime because I grew up in New York as a Jet fan, and both the Jets and the Giants not only moved out of the city proper, they moved out of the state. Yeah. They went across the river into another state, and it was perfectly fine. It was no big deal. We've never dealt with that here in Philadelphia because the Eagles have always been within the city limits, but there have been times before they ever moved out of the vet. There were conversations about where the new Eagles Stadium could be built. What are your thoughts on teams, quote unquote, moving to the burbs? If you're going outside the city limits, is that a big deal? Is that an affront to the fan base if teams consider something like that?
I think it's a bigger affront to people who typically, not your caller, but typically who don't live in that specific area. Like, they don't realize how close the Giants and the Jets are to New York. They're actually, closer to Manhattan. You could throw a rock and hit Manhattan from the Meadowlands, basically, if you got a John Elway-like arm. So it's really close is what I'm getting to. My point is, you talk about how close Arlington Heights is to Chicago. It's the same market. I went through when the Vikings moved from Bloomington to Minneapolis, they said, oh, the Vikings are moving. They're moving 20 minutes up I-35, whatever the heck it is. And that's it. That's it. So I think it's a bigger deal for people don't realize the geography of the particular area. But, if the Sixers, by the way, they might move to Camden. They're not happy with Wells Fargo Center. If they can get New Jersey on board to build them at their own arena, they'll go to Camden in a second. The Nets obviously were at the Meadowlands, and then they were at the, what's it called now, the Prudential Centers. It's still the Prudential Center, and now they're in Brooklyn. Who cares? It's all the same geography. It's the same team. They got a little bit cooler by being called Brooklyn, but it's the same area. Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you could hit Manhattan with a rock if you got John Elway's arm from the Meadowlands. Oh, yeah, you could certainly hit Philadelphia from the Sixers practice facility right across the river in Camden. It's if there wasn't a river in between, you could probably walk it in under 10 minutes. If you were just traversing the area across the Delaware River, it's not that big a deal. And it just amazes me. Was this caller, but I did it for years in New York when I did talk shows up there. The Jets, when the Giant Stadium came down, there was conversation of them building a stadium on the west side of Manhattan rather than joining in partnership with the Giants on other stadium, which, by the way, never had a chance of happening. Would have been a nightmare.
Real estate, by the way, real estate kind of expensive in Manhattan. In a swamp in North Jersey, not quite as expensive. So that plays into it as well. Where are you going to get the free land to build these palaces? That's part of the problem in Chicago. The Bears have a lot of problems with the city of Chicago. And, they probably love to get the hell out of there, to be honest.
And here's the one thing that I think people don't acknowledge enough. Specifically with the NFL, we're only talking about now 17 days. And if you're talking about just home games, used to be 8, add in the preseason. So it's still 10 games a year, even with the added game. You're talking about 10 games a year. If it is a baseball team, now you're asking the fans to come out 81 times over the course of a season. Now convenience and having to get in a car and drive further because they're out in the suburb. Yeah, that can become something that could become a deterrent. A basketball or a hockey team, okay, I'll even buy a little of that. If you're 41 times asking your fan base to show up in your building, and if you're asking them to go a little bit further, they might say, yeah, no, I'm not going to drive up to the Sig. I'm not going to go to Flag. You're talking about special events. When the Eagles only have 10 games a year, you're going to drive wherever you need to drive. If you want to go watch the Eagles play, you're going to put in the extra couple of miles behind the wheel to be able to get to the Eagles games. As long as you got enough room to tailgate, who the heck cares if you got to drive an extra 20 minutes?
Well,
you're only doing it 10 times a year.
Jody, you don't have to look hard for the Phillies and say, you can take the train down there and walk a couple blocks and be at Citizens Bank Park. Place is packed when they're good. Nobody's there. Nobody's there when they're not good. So what does it matter? What is the ability to hop on the train? What is that doing for you? If the team is good, people will show up, whether it's the suburbs or the city or wherever. If they're not good, they're not going to show up. With the NFL, with the Eagles, as you said, it's an event. Oh, they're showing up. They're showing up in Chicago for a Bears game in Arlington Heights. Trust me. Trust me on that.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have a half-empty stadium. Now, here's the one thing I will say about having been going to Eagle games and doing the Eagle pregame show, good years, but in years where the Eagles haven't been good, you get a Christmas week game when the Eagles aren't in the playoff hunt, when they've already been mathematically eliminated. Oh, all the money's gone into Jeff Lurie's pocket. Don't kid yourself on that. All the tickets are sold. But you can have a half-empty stadium that the fans will just say, yeah, no, never mind. It's too cold to go out, and it really doesn't mean anything. The game is kind of irrelevant for this season. We'll wait till next year. Yeah, just because the tickets sold doesn't mean they're going to fill the house. But that's the most important thing to Jeff Lurie. Let's be honest about this. As long as he's sold all those tickets, he's okay with every once in a while, not often, but every once in a while having a freezing cold, near zero December game being half full at best.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Don't get me wrong. If you're 4-11-1, in the last game is half empty, yeah, that doesn't look good aesthetically. Plus, you're losing some concessions and parking and all that. But you're right; those tickets are sold, Jody. So ultimately, the TV revenue's getting split, whether you're good or bad. So, from a business standpoint, it doesn't hit you that much.
And even on those cold December days where you may or may not go, even though you've already bought the tickets, been there, done that a couple of times. I had it in my car for years when I would go to games, and I couldn't even tell you where it is. But I used to have a CD that I could throw into my car CD player. Greatest hits of NFL films.
No.
And as you're driving to the stadium, you throw a tape in like that. Yeah. I'd have to turn on my local sports radio station. If it's an Eagle game, WIP. If it's a New York football game, WFAN. And yes, I want to get some updated information on the game coming up. But if I'm going as a fan and I'm using tickets and I want to get pumped up and psyched for the game, I throw in a tape of NFL hits, greatest hits of all time. Which means
Facenda.
John Facenda's voice is going to be coming through the speakers in my car. I got to admit here, John, shame on me. When I found out yesterday that John Facenda was being honored this year with the Peter Rozelle Award, which is for radio and television contributions to the National Football League, I was floored. I thought for sure that John Facenda was already in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I had no idea that he had not yet been given that honor as the voice of the National Football League. It was a foregone conclusion in my mind. Now, I've been covering the NFL for 30 plus years. I should have known that, so I'm not questioning the Hall of Fame voters. Well, yeah, I am a little bit. But just as much question on me for not realizing that John Facenda wasn't in yet. When I read that yesterday, I was so taken aback by it, I couldn't believe it. How was John Facenda not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame prior to yesterday?
Well, I was with you, by the way. I was kind of stunned that he wasn't honored. Turns out he was honored. It was called something different. It was called, I'm looking it up, the Ralph Hay Pioneer Award, an award presented to an individual who's made significant innovative contributions to professional football. So I don't know. We can ask Jason Cole. I mean, Jason Cole might have a better feel for why it took so long. But yeah, if you're going to have the award, I guess I don't pay as much attention to that award because, media people, we don't belong in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and nobody.
So if they tabbed you, you would turn it down?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying. I'm saying I don't pay attention to it as much because it doesn't. I don't get it as much as it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Look, there's some great Ray Didinger being locally phenomenal, right? I mean, give him every writing award you want. I just don't get the philosophy behind it. So I think that's the reason I didn't realize it. But yeah, he should have been the first guy. I mean, if you're going to do a radio television thing, he's got to be the first guy, right? I would think so, unless you're going to put Ed Sable in or Steve Sable. Maybe they should be the first, but
Ed's already in and Steve is going in.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I think someone realized, hey, we've never actually given Facenda the Pete Rozelle Award, which is for radio and television. Who's more deserving than him? I think it was a bit of an oversight, and I'm glad that they corrected it. But I'm actually pointing the accusatory finger at myself. The fact that I didn't know that he wasn't already
I didn't know either. I did not know, Jody. And it was one of those things where, so I'm looking it up now. They started it in 89, and the first one was Bill McPhail, who was an executive at CBS. Ed Sable was 91. Then you had guys like Chris Schenkel, Kurt Gowdy, Pat Summerall, Frank Gifford, Jack Buck, so mostly TV people. Charlie Jones, Dick Enberg, Ray Scott, Rune Arledge, who was an executive, John Madden, John Crickey. So it's mainly TV related. I don't know. Maybe it was more of an announcing award. And obviously, John was more narration for NFL films. But yeah, he would have been number one for me, to be honest.
Right. Where did we hear the NFL film stuff? But on television, they didn't make actual films. You didn't go to a movie theater to hear John Facenda. You heard it on your TV.
Yeah, but it's mainly play-by-play or color guys. So yeah, but again, I don't know the history of the award. So I'll tell you what, radio's getting screwed, Jody. So that's bad news for you.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath. I'm kind of like you on that way. If the honor ever came, it's got zero chance. You've got about a 0.001 chance of getting in. I have a flat 0 chance of getting in, and I'm not going to worry about it or lose any sleep over it. I just, when I heard that yesterday, I said, damn, that's an oversight on the NFL. Shame on them. They should have honored this man earlier because – yeah, if you are of a certain age, I got a couple of years on you. I remember when watching those NFL film highlight packages, that was it. There wasn't easily accessible on your pad, on your phone. I can get NFL highlights anytime. No, that was it. You wanted NFL highlights, 2 places on a compilation highlight film put together by NFL Films and or Howie Cosell on Monday Night Football. That's the only place you got your NFL highlights. And
no, I'm with you. He should have been in. He should have been in. Like the autumn wind is a pirate, Jody. He should have been in. He's the voice of God. That's a pretty good nickname.
Yeah, when that's the nickname you've garnered, voice of God, how are you not in your sports hall of fame up until that point? Doesn't make any sense to me. And NFL Films has been phenomenal, and they still are putting out great stuff. And even though John Facenda is not doing it, Harry Callis took over, did it for years. We are very lucky here in the Delaware Valley that it has been the home of NFL Films forever, and they've been able to use very recognizable voices to us here from
real quick, you're sending me down a wormhole, Jody, because fans always say, oh, they hate the Eagles. They hate the local teams, the announcers. So many of the announcers are from here because NFL Films has been in Mount Laurel, and so much about it. I mean, if anything, they're biased towards the Eagles, people, because there's so many Philadelphia people involved in NFL Films over the years.
And again, we're showing our age a little bit, but I have no problem doing that. Tom Brookshire was the #1 analyst for one of the 2 broadcast networks for years. He and Tom Summerall were like this. He and Pat Summerall, were like this, and they were a phenomenal team. And yes, to my ears, Brookie, whenever he got an Eagle game, would certainly lean toward the Eagle direction. Even when he got games that could have an effect on an Eagle season, I think he would see him through somewhat Eagle-colored glasses. That's just my read on Tom Brookshire, my former boss, my first boss at WIP. Great guy and a great broadcaster as well. But you're right, he was a Philadelphia broadcaster doing national games. But if you talk to a lot of Philadelphia fans, yes, all the announcers are against the Eagles. Everyone hates Philadelphia. How does this guy get this job when it's so obvious that he has a chip on his shoulder about Philadelphia? That's just not the case and hasn't been for a long time.
Hasn't been. In fact, it was more geared because of where NFL Films is, because the producers, the camera, everybody's an Eagles fan, basically. And, as you go on, things have changed a little bit. They do a lot of work out in Los Angeles, obviously, now, and it's become a bigger part of it. You have the whole Cowboy influence with Troy Aikman and Daryl Johnston and Tony Romo, obviously, Jason Witten for the year. So, yeah, things have changed a little bit. But, man, there were a lot of – and there still are a lot of Philadelphia people involved in NFL films.
Yeah, wow. You just reminded me of something. Yeah, there are a lot of Cowboy guys, and they're pretty good. I've always thought Aikman was
Romo's
good. And
tremendous. So was
very
Aikman.
good. What's Jason Witten doing this year? He came back and played last year. I don't believe he's on anybody's roster. I know no network has reached out to grab him after he did a year of Monday Night Football, which he wasn't all that good at. You got any idea what Jason Witten's doing for 2021?
No, he's not going to be back in broadcasting. That was not successful, so I don't think that's going to work out for him. But I don't think he's going to play. So
you want to know something? If I were a network head, I'd want to give that guy a second shot. I didn't think he did a great job. I thought it was a poorly constructed booth, and his play-by-play guy wasn't all that great. I'd like to see him get another shot in a booth somewhere. Anyway, John McMullen, Jody McDonald hanging with you. Coming up next, we have our second guest of the day. First time we've had him on Birds 365. I've had him on my radio shows for years. Jason Cole, NFL author and Hall of Fame voter, is going to join us next here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
You got your Mac and Mac guys here with you on Birds 365. John McMullen, Jody McDonald. Looking forward to the next 15, 20 minutes here with our next guest. I've had him on my national radio show many a time, but first time I get to see his smiling face. Jason Cole, NFL author, Hall of Fame voter, joins us here on Birds 365. How you doing, Jason?
I'm fantastic. What's going on?
Hey, Jason, good to see you.
Good to see you, John.
I don't know if you were on hold there. Well, Jody and I were talking about John Facenda, who's going to be honored by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I wanted to get your take on that, being a voter and being involved in the process. Obviously not for that award, but just, you know, Jody and I were both on the same page saying Facenda's not in. What the heck? What the heck is going on here with that particular award? Why did it take so long? Or are we just off base? And they gave him a different award years ago. So just kind of explain that.
Well, number one, I was actually surprised as well. I was like, Facenda's not in already. Like I've never had to consider Facenda.
Yeah.
His name has never been put in front of me during the 8 years that I've been a voter, or 9 years now that I've been a voter. So it's one of those things where you don't think about people that are not put in front of you, right? So in this case, that award is not run by the voters themselves. We don't approve that. That's done in-house by the Hall of Fame itself and whatever their process is. I mean, if you look at the list, I mean, it's pretty outstanding list. So the fact that Facenda hasn't made it yet, when you start to look at the people who have been honored already, I don't know that it was necessarily an oversight as much as it's a pretty crowded list. It's sort of like when you talk about the senior committee, which we do run, and all the senior candidates. It's a pretty backlogged list of people who should be considered or should already be in, basically.
Jason, we like having guys like yourself on because you got a good national perspective and understand the whole league. We so narrow focus on our team, the Eagles here in Philadelphia. We need to get a broader scope look at things. So I'll ask you this question. Would you put Jalen Hurts in your top 40 quarterbacks in the National Football League? Because one national guy decided to pass on putting him in the top 40, not top 32. Top 40 with a couple of extra backups thrown in there. Is he on point? And Jalen Hurts got a lot to prove this year? Or did he show enough last year that you could sneak him into your top 40?
Look, I think Jalen Hurts is a really talented athlete who has enough traits in the modern game to get away with being a quarterback. He is not what you look for in a pocket passer. And I still think, despite the fact that you have Lamar Jackson, you have Kyler Murray, and you have Russell Wilson, all these guys who can move, the game is still won from the pocket. That's how you impact defenses the most. It's won from the pocket first, and then with the ability to create outside, all right? And there are some exceptions to that rule. I'm not saying that is a absolute blank canvas statement across the board. I mean, again, Lamar Jackson works because he has speed that is unreal and running ability that is unreal. He's off the charts. Jalen Hurts is not like that, right? He's not Lamar Jackson, okay? He has enough ability. He's closer to Russell Wilson, which is Russell Wilson is first a pocket quarterback who has the ability to create and run and do some interesting things. But Jalen Hurts doesn't throw the ball like Russell Wilson, right? And that's where you sit there and go, okay, this is where it starts to break down. Now, top 40, like after you get past the first 15 or 20 quarterbacks in the league, what's the difference between 21 and 40? What's the difference between 21 and 50? It's really a matter of taste, okay? And if this is Chris Sims's list, okay, Chris Sims, and I didn't check whether Jalen Hurts was on it or not, but I'm assuming that's what you mean. But
correct.
Chris Sims is a quarterback purist, okay?
Yeah.
That's how he looks at this. He looks at it from, this is what a quarterback is supposed to look like. This is how they're scouted. This is how my dad played. This is how I was trained to play. This is, that's what he's used to, and that's what he's looking for, with some moderate exceptions. Jalen Hurts doesn't fit into that category. So, yeah, I'm uncomfortable with Jalen Hurts as a quarterback, but I could be wrong. I will certainly say that. And the jury is sort of out on this one. But you guys know the Eagles have been sniffing around on other quarterbacks all offseason. They've been trying to figure out what are they doing at that position.
Yeah. Jason, when you talk about the quarterback position as a whole, one of the cliches you always hear is you can't teach accuracy. Now, you heard a lot of those things about Josh Allen. All of a sudden, Josh Allen got accurate for whatever reason. There was certainly an improvement from Wyoming to the professional level. Do you think that's a fair criticism? And in fact, Jalen's at 52%. That's not good enough. But can that get better? Can you teach that at the pro level?
I think it depends on certain factors, like what does your release point look like? Are you consistent when you get rid of the ball? Is your motion consistent? Like Cam Newton is never going to be a really accurate thrower. It's just like sort of when you guys watch Donovan McNabb. Donovan, threw low and hard, right? And Cam Newton throws high and loose. It's his throwing motion. It's just you look at that. Kyle Bowler, when he played in Baltimore, was just he was whipping the ball around as hard as he could. He didn't have finesse. He didn't have touch. Okay. He believed you throw it as far as you can or you throw it as hard as you can. You're not going to be able to teach that guy to back off of that. Jalen Hurts, there's something a little bit better in him. Is it Josh Allen better? Like, are you going to learn to throw with a little bit of touch? Are you going to learn to throw with a little more accuracy? Yeah, I think guys can get better, but look, if you're not Joe Montana or Tom Brady, you're not going to become those guys. You're not going to be able to ever get that level. You can get a little bit better. You can get more accurate. You can take advantage of whatever your athletic ability is to then understand if I run around a little bit, if I create a little bit, I'm going to be able to get the ball to here, and I can be a little bit more accurate that way. But you're never going to be elite in that category.
Jason, again, same kind of question I answered my first one. Give us that good national perspective on a topic that we may be in town a little too close to, a little too narrow focused. Nick Sirianni, new first-year head coach for the Eagles. The first thing we got from him was that he's an enthusiastic guy. He's got a lot of get up and go to his delivery and the way that he talks to players and the way that he coaches for a guy like John who gets out there and gets to see a couple minutes on the field. But can he coach in the NFL? We have no idea. We got to wait and see. But we're trying to draw conclusions without him ever having coached a game. The rah-rah attitude, the rally the troops with positivity and pumping your fist and trying to get guys excited. We've seen it work in the NFL. We've seen it fail in the NFL. How do you determine which one it's more likely going to be before the season ever happens? Do you have a guy or two that you would make reference to who you saw as a first time out of the box head coach that either made it work or it kind of blew up in his face?
Look, do you prove to the players one way or the other that you know how to put them in the best position to win? That's the only thing that matters to players, okay? Whether players buy into what you do is, do you put me in position to win and make me look good, okay? And make me play better football. If you can do that, they don't care if you wear pom-poms, okay? Or if you're, have this, wear the hoodie like Belichick. They don't care, all right? All they care about is, do you put me in position to win? Do you put the team in position to win? Okay. And there's a certain amount of authority that goes to that. Can you run the whole team and keep everybody going the right direction? But if we win, ultimately, if I play better as a player, I'm going to buy into whatever it is that you're doing. That's the most important thing in all of this. Now, I prefer authority. Okay. I think it's more important for an authority, but I'm not the GM. Okay, my biggest concern about Sirianni is that he's a continuation of Doug Peterson in that he's going to be manipulated by the owner and the GM, right? Yeah. And that they're going to take control of the situation. They haven't found the authority figure like the Andy Reid who they could trust to say, go run the football operations.
Did they want that figure, Jason?
Well, that was the thing that they were most successful with consistently, and they tried to get with Peterson. Unfortunately, Doug doesn't have that persona. I know Doug really well. I mean, I covered him when he was a quarterback with the Dolphins. He doesn't have the persona to go in to Howie or Jeff and say, hey, you guys got to back off. Okay? You guys got to let me run my part of the organization. You go do whatever it is you're going to do, and I'll win. Okay? He never did that, and they didn't trust him, and they ran over the top of him. All right, and that's that's their nature. Andy Reid came in. He had Joe Banner by his side. Joe knew that he wasn't going to be great at actually picking or coaching players, so he ran the analytics and he ran the finance side of it, and they were successful enough that Jeff stayed out of the way, right? But they haven't had that guy since then. And whether it was Chip Kelly or Doug Peterson, now Sirianni seems to me like a guy who's going to get run over by the owner and the GM. That's just how it looks to me from a distance.
Yeah, you typically get that pendulum effect when you change coaches. You go from players coach to disciplinarian or vice versa. That's typically how it kind of works. Doesn't seem to work that way, certainly in Philadelphia. From the outside looking in, and you know a lot of the participants, you're very close to Doug, as you said. How much has Jeffrey Lurie changed? Or was Andy Reid just a better politician, better able to handle an owner who wants to be involved? Because Jeff is here every day. He's watching practice. He's here every single day.
Look, Andy had a combination of knew how to work people, and he still does. He knows how to work people, make them feel like they're involved, make them feel like they're important. He does have a political element to him, while at the same time having an authority to say, look, I'm going to allow you to participate this much, but at the end of the day, I draw the line here. I make the decision here. I can't tell you the number of times, Joe Banner and Jeff Lurie would go to him with their analytics about, okay, this is what you should be doing on third down and running game situations. And you guys know it. Andy's greatest flaw was that he never developed a great running game in Philadelphia that he could completely trust, and he threw too much, right? So they would constantly go to him with these analytics about what are you supposed to do in fourth quarter. And he'd look at him and go, I'm going to do it my way. and he won games, right?
Yeah.
Like he won games. So what were they really ultimately going to say? And he developed players. So what were they really ultimately going to say? And the quarterbacks, every quarterback that he had ended up being better than that guy's ability or played to the best of his ability no matter what, whether that was Donovan, whether it was Michael Vick, or whether it was, A.J. Feely, right?
Yeah.
Those guys always played to the best of their ability. So they, like he had the efficacy to go with it, that even if Joe and Jeff said, hey, maybe you should be running things a little bit differently, he'd say, I run football. Thank you.
Jason, I want to jump back to the quarterback position because I think you've got a little extra added value and information here in a competition I see coming over the next year. And that's the Eagles against the Broncos. You know the Broncos organization pretty well. You did your book, Relentless Life, with John Elway. The one thing John Elway hasn't been able to do is find the next John Elway in Denver. He got the nice little respite with Peyton Manning in there, won a Super Bowl, but he hasn't been able to find that young guy to pick up where John Elway left off when John Elway was a player, which means I think they are going to be a big-time player in the quarterback market next season. They've decided to go with Locke and Teddy Bridgewater this year. Good luck with that. But we here in Philadelphia think there's a real good chance the Eagles are looking for their next quarterback by the end of this season. I think, personally, the Broncos are looking for their next quarterback by the end of the season. Elway this offseason brought in a serious general manager to try and take a little of the emphasis off himself in being the guy to find that next quarterback. Am I reading the situation right? Are the Broncos going to be major players, either via draft, moving up in a draft, and or free agency if Aaron Rodgers ever gets there, if Deshaun Watson ever gets there? Are the Eagles and the Broncos going to be in competition for a franchise quarterback?
Yes, they are. The competition could come a little bit faster, depending on Aaron Rodgers. I don't think, if it's Aaron Rodgers, I don't think the Eagles are going to be in on that one. It's going to be a West Coast team because that's where Aaron's going to prefer to be. He's got his short list of teams that he wanted to play for. San Francisco was on top of that list, but San Francisco made their move a little bit prematurely, I would say. They probably could have made a trade work a little bit if they hadn't made the big trade up to get up into the top 3. So, Rodgers is going to try and get out of there. I don't know if he's going to be able to set sort of that nuclear warhead off that's going to ultimately get him out of Green Bay. Like, is he going to blow up the locker room to the point where the Packers say, we can't even keep this guy around? That's hard for any player to do because your reputation takes a big hit when you do that, right? But we'll see if he does. Deshaun Watson is going to be available. I think he is radioactive for Houston. And actually, if I was Philadelphia or Denver or any team that's looking down the road saying, I need to get a franchise quarterback, I'd actually probably be willing to take Deshaun Watson on now at a cheaper price in terms of the draft compensation. And if if I have to pay him the $10 million for not playing this year, okay, I'll bite that bullet. That's a small investment for a franchise quarterback. If I can save myself, if I can say I can get him for 2 first-round picks plus a second-round pick, or maybe a little bit more, instead of, okay, he's not suspended anymore, now it's going to cost me 3 or 4 first-round picks. I would rather pay less in the draft compensation and more in the money, because like Deshaun Watson's going to play again. All right, as long as this is the material that is out there, if that's it, and we haven't seen any more of it, right?
Yeah.
What he's done is stupid. What he's done is unsavory. What he's done, is a little weird. Okay, having 40 different masseuses or involved, that's sloppy with your life,
right?
But I don't think there's nothing criminal here. Okay. There's nothing that's going to send him to jail for an extended period of time or cost him the rest of his career with the NFL. That's how I view this. Is it going to be a 2-game suspension, a 6-game suspension, a year suspension? Maybe. But even if it's a year and I have to pay him $10 million to not play for a year, I'll take that. I'll take that on, and then I'll buy the rest of the contract, and I would buy low on the draft pick compensation, and I would deal with whatever the fallout is. From the PR standpoint, the Eagles have been down this road, with Vic. They took on an even more difficult case in Vic, and they survived that one. I would be willing to go get Deshaun Watson.
So to kind of explore that a little bit further, Jason, Nick Cesaro came out and said a little bit that he expects that something will happen by the beginning of training camp. I think the assumption around the league is that'll be the commissioner's exempt list.
Sure.
Is the league sort of willing to tell teams behind the scenes, sort of wink, wink, yeah, Deshaun's going to be suspended, might be half a season, might be a full year. And does that make it easier for teams potentially trying to get a star player for essentially what would be pennies on the dollar? And maybe a better way to go about it, as you mentioned, than giving up 3 first-round picks if you wait.
Well, look, I don't know that the league. If I was Goodell, I would never give anybody that kind of guidance. I might, because I don't know what's going to happen next, right? I don't know. I've got my investigators, I've got everything, but I don't know what is the next thing around the corner that's going to happen that I may have to change my decision. So don't. I'm not going to box myself in. I would only tell somebody, look, based on what I see so far, I don't anticipate, he's not going to be out for his career. Okay. I don't know if it's going to be 2 games or a full season, but I don't anticipate that. But I don't know what could happen. So you are taking on the liability that there's something else that's going to happen with this guy, or some other bit of information. So there is some risk. But that risk is mitigated by the fact that I'm going to be paying a lower price on the draft pick compensation, right, to take on somebody else's problem and get this guy a fresh start. Now, is Houston going to be willing to do that? Or are they going to be willing to sell low on this problem? They haven't so far, number one. Number 2, they've already weathered the worst of the storm, right? Number 3, I think Jack Easterby, the guy who kind of is the de facto president of the team, in some ways kind of likes having Deshaun Watson around because it takes all of the glare off of Jack Easterman, right? Like, yeah, whether he really understands that or not, it's like, okay, this guy's okay for me because everybody's screaming about Deshaun Watson. They're not screaming about me right now. Okay, so there's a lot that has to play out, but that would be the road I would go down if I was a general manager and I wanted to have Deshaun Watson. Is I wouldn't be afraid of what I have seen so far. And I would do my due diligence. I would send my private investigators. I would find out everything that I possibly could about what am I going to expect next. I'd be talking to Goodell. I'd be talking to the lawyers, as much as I could. I'd try and find out everything that I could beforehand. But right now, knowing what I know publicly, I would probably be willing to trade for him, knowing he's going to play someday.
All right, I got another QB question for you, and I'll try and streamline it as best I can. Knowing full well to ask 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, are Eagle fans going to look back and go, why did we ever move away from Carson Wentz? We'll have a lot to do with what the Eagles quarterback does. That will affect the way people look at Carson Wentz and if he had stayed. I won't even ask you to do that. Just give me your read on Carson Wentz. In his situation now, reunited with Frank Reich in Indianapolis, maybe away from the pressure cooker that is Philadelphia, a little less pressure in Indiana. How do you think Carson Wentz plays going forward next 2, 3, 4 years? Is it something that Eagle fans will look back and say, man, we had that guy. How'd we ever let him go?
Well, first of all, a little less pressure in Indianapolis versus Philadelphia. Like the fan bases are anything close in those two cities.
All right. I might have undersold it a little bit. Okay, thank you.
And the media, that really tough indie media, look, if Carson Wentz is ever going to make it, he's going to have to make it in a town like Indianapolis where they have, less glare, obviously. At this point, I think it's been shown he's not the most mentally tough guy out there in terms of handling the pressure that's around him. He didn't handle the fact that Nick Foles won a Super Bowl very well. It didn't come together for him. He felt like he was second guessed. And that's, if you're like that as a quarterback, you're not going to make it in this league. You're just not. So I think overwhelmingly I would bet against, he might be good. I don't think he's going to be fantastic. So I think that overwhelmingly you're not going to regret it. But he is in the best possible situation for him to make it in any way, shape, or form. Because, yes, it's in a lower glare city, lower glare media, with a coach who knows how to handle him, who's gotten something out of him before. So if ever he's going to make it, this is the opportunity. But you always have to say, would that happen in Philadelphia? No. It just wouldn't. Yeah. He wasn't ready. He couldn't do it. He, when they won a Super Bowl without him, it got inside of his head. When he got hurt, it got inside of his head. He wasn't a great leader of men, and the Eagles sort of screwed it up because they didn't surround him with great talent either. So it all comes some cumulative effect of he lost his confidence. Whatever mojo he had was gone, and it wasn't going to come back. It didn't happen. So if I'm an Eagles fan, you say, okay, great, go have a great career, but I know you weren't. I know you weren't going to make it in this town. You just have to look at it that way.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it too, Jason, because I think free agencies, trades in any sport, I think when they work out, people assume it would have worked out in the original town. That's not necessarily the case. So I think it's a good way to look at it. One final thing for me, we talked about Aaron a little bit, Aaron Rodgers. That's the biggest story in the NFL offseason. July 2nd is sort of a linchpin because you can opt out of the season. He's not going to opt out. You mentioned the nuclear part of it. People have talked about Carson Palmer, maybe goes down that route, but even though Aaron doesn't need the money, I've yet to meet the guy that's given back $23 million. So
Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson.
No, that's true. Ultimately, what do you think is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers? Is he going to play for the Green Bay Packers? And why would the Packers want him as a lame duck? If they're going to say, play one final year, why do you want a lame duck?
Because maybe you've seen Jordan Love practice. I'm just saying. I don't know. I don't know if Jordan Love really is good or not. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
so I don't want to put that on him. The odds are that he's not Aaron Rodgers. So if you're Matt LaFleur, you're looking like my best chance is that dude, Aaron Rodgers, and I'll take my chance with that dude. And we'll see if we keep him beyond this year on the contract that we have, or whatever. Let that play out. Okay. Look, Aaron's different. Aaron takes slights very seriously. I mean, the fact that he's disassociated himself from his parents and his brothers, if you're willing to do that, you can say goodbye to Green Bay too, right? Like you're a pretty willful human being. So if anybody's going to do this, it's Aaron Rodgers. But I'm just going to say it's hard. It's really, really hard to go down that path because you know that an entire city is going to hate you. John Elway did it with Baltimore. Baltimore still hates John Elway. Okay. And that's unfair because the guy who really screwed it up was Bob Irsay, but whatever. He wasn't the one who made the public statement, I don't want to play in Baltimore, right? It was really, I don't want to play for the Colts and Irsay and Frank Kush, but he said Baltimore, and that was where he really got it wrong, right? So it's hard to go down that path. It's hard to say, go ahead, hate me. I don't care. I don't care at all if you hate me. I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore. I can't work for these people. I can't tolerate the fact that you haven't, for the last 10 years, surrounded me with more talent. And then you made it even worse where you took a first-round pick and you picked my successor. That is the John Elway story in 1992, all right? When in 1992, they're supposed to take Carl Pickens with their first-round pick, the wide receiver out of Tennessee, right? This is what Dan Reeves was supposed to do. What did he do? He took Tommy Maddox out of UCLA. That was the last year those two guys were together. Reeves is gone after that year, okay? Because it was a full-on war between Elway and Reeves. So I think somebody's going to be gone in Green Bay. I think there's a strong likelihood it's Aaron Rodgers. If it was me, I would probably be replacing the general manager because it's easier to find GMs than it is to find quarterbacks.
All right, Jason, last one. This is a story that's kind of faded into the background the last week or so because nobody is together in a camp anywhere. But soon enough, training camps are going to open. It was a pretty good story 2 weeks ago when there were some still teams gathering together because the NFL still has COVID protocols in place. If a team can get upwards of 85% people vaccinated, those protocols get eased and relaxed quite significantly. And everyone is speculating as to how many teams are going to get to 85% by the time camp opens. How many do you think it's going to be? How many are going to have holdouts and guys who just want to make the decision for themselves and not be told what to do? Is this going to be a major story come 3 weeks from now when camps open up again?
I think we'll probably have. I don't know what the numbers are going to look like. Were there like two teams that are already at 85%?
Yeah.
So if you get two now, if somebody was going to take the vaccine, they were already going to. They should have already done it by now, right? They've had ample time to take the vaccine.
Sure.
So I don't think the numbers are going to grow. Are we going to get to 6 or 7? Is it going to go up from there? Probably not significantly, because again, if you are willing to take the vaccine, you had every opportunity to do it now. Why didn't you do it already by now? Maybe you'll feel some pressure and the list will grow to 9 or 10, but I think we're going to have 19 or 20 teams. At the end of the day, is it going to really matter? I don't think so. I think that the NFL proved that they were able to get through an entire season last year. And granted, there were some moments that it looked like it might not happen. Games were moved to Wednesdays and Thursdays and all this other stuff, right? And it gets harder when you're selling tickets. I get that. Fans in the stand change a lot of things, right? But if they got through last season without missing any games, I think they're going to get through this season without missing any games. I think they're going to find a way to do it. And it helps when you only have to play once a week. And I think that, Major League Baseball is showing, and even the NBA is showing, you can get through a season without having a lot of people vaccinated. So I think we're going to get through next season okay. I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. And I think holding out and not getting vaccinated is kind of silly. But I'm also not going to argue with a guy like Cole Beasley, who feels very strongly that he doesn't want to take a vaccine, right? If that's your choice, not to take a vaccine. But understand you're putting your team at risk. Just like last year, the Denver Broncos. And I think this is one of the most important games in anybody of last season.
Yeah.
That the NFL made a statement look, you screw this up, we don't care if you're playing with a guy, who hasn't played quarterback since college. You're going to play. We're going to get through this season. It's going to happen. And you're going to pay the price by playing an uncompetitive game. And once you play an uncompetitive game, then the pressure is really on from all your teammates who start looking at you going, hey, dude, you screwed this up for us and we embarrassed ourselves and we lost a game because of you. When that happens, then the rest of the league falls into place.
That's why we have Jason Cole on to give us insight and opinion like that. Jason, great stuff today. We're going to be calling on you again. Thanks for hopping on with us. We'll talk to you again down the road.
All right, guys. Take care.
My pleasure. That is Jason Cole, former NFL beat reporter, author, and Hall of Fame voter. You know what I like most about Jason, Johnny Mac? I've mentioned I've had him on my radio show for you. He always sounds so certain of what he's saying.
Yeah, you got to, man.
I don't know if it's just his voice or the way that he says it. I've never seen him before because he's always on the other end of a telephone line. But just looking at him as well, any question you ask him, it sounds like he knows exactly the answer. He doesn't think, he doesn't have to hem, he doesn't have to awe. He's got the answer, and he just clearly and plainly states it for you.
Well, if you're comfortable with your opinion, you can be comfortable giving it. So that's what I like about Jason. He's well educated on the subject, so he's very competent talking about them.
He really was. And it was just a treat for me because he's a guy who I had interviewed, 10, 12 times over the year. But I'd never seen him before, right? And it was good to punch him up here on Birds 365. All right, we're running late. We'll take our final timeout, come back, put a bow on the show. Stay with us.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Mac guys, coming back to wrap up a good session of Birds 365, at least one man's opinion. That's because of Chris Franklin and Jason Cole both did very good jobs hopping on as guests. Tomorrow, we've already got our buddy BLG book, Brandon Lee Gouton, going to hop aboard with us tomorrow, so we're looking forward to that. Let us end on this note. A question for you, John McMullen. Down day, not going to the facilities. Nick Sirianni probably spending some quality time with his family. Do you know if he's got kids or not?
I don't. That's a good question.
Yeah, nor do I.
Married,
right. Let's assume he's got some youngsters running around the house, Rugrats maybe. Is he more likely losing rock, paper, scissors to them?
Well, he's losing.
Foul shooting to them? Do you think he's down the beach? Do you think he can tank Marco Polo? What do you think Jonathan Sirianni is doing with his...
By the way, I'm a little alarmed. I want to say, whatever Nick's doing, he's losing. But the question is he losing on purpose, as you mentioned, or is he losing? Well, one's better than the other. But I'm a little alarmed from what Jason Cole told us about Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman and the difference between Andy Reid and not only Nick Sirianni, but also Doug Peterson. These guys are trying to railroad this coach. That's my bigger concern. And Jody, I have to correct this because I'm big about correcting stuff. Okay. Jason Witten retired. He signed a 1-year deal with the Cowboys. We were talking about him. So he's officially retired, but haven't heard anything about him going back to TV.
When he stepped away from football previously and did a year in the Monday Night Football booth, and then came back and played again. Was he not retired when he was in the Monday Night Football booth?
But he didn't do the one-day contract thing. So they made the big ceremony of it. I'm not saying, hey, he could come back if he wants, but I don't think he's coming back this time.
I'm just saying, when you have someone who's already unretired once before, when he retires for a second time, I'm not taking it at 100%. That's just me.
Recommendation real quick, and we got to go because we're running over. 4 Kings about Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Ernst, Marvin Hagler, Roberto Duran. Great documentary going on right now on Showtime. Everybody should watch it. Boy, I forgot how many times Sugar Ray Leonard retired and unretired. Boy, unbelievable.
I've been saying this on my radio show for 25 years. Retired from boxing, one of the most relative terms in all of sports. You're relatively retired.
Jody, I forgot there was a Leonard Duran 3. I completely forgot.
Oh, no, I watched that.
I watched it too. I'm saying I completely forgot until I was reminded. That's how meaningless it was at the time. But those 4 guys, they were great.
All right, maybe I'll tell you my Sugar Ray Leonard Roberto Duran. Lost money story. One of these days coming up on Birds 365. All right, yes, we'll be back tomorrow. BLG, that would be Brandon Lee Gouton, will be with us. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. Thank you very much for watching Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and